Welcome to The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge. We're applying the mind of Christ to the matters of the day so that you can connect the eternal with the everyday and get ready to head out into the world that God so loves in ways that honor Jesus. So let's get started. This is The Reconnect.
Encouraging you to live as an ambassador of God's kingdom in the world.
This is The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge on Faith Radio.
If we're gonna fly, we fly like eagles, arms out wide. If we're gonna fear, we fear no evil. We will rise. By your power we will go. By your spirit we are bold. If we're gonna stand, we stand as giants. If we're gonna walk, we walk as lions.
Hello, my friend. Let's start off this hour of The Reconnect with an invitation to pray the news. It's a good hashtag if you just want to think about how you want to draw people's attention beyond whatever is sort of raging in social conversation and instead redirect people's attention to the needs of others, the shared concerns or the concerns we ought to be sharing about what's happening in the lives of other people. And so Pray the News today might be floods in Texas. You remember the catastrophic, deadly floods last summer? Well, Texas, the Texas Hill Country, the same area of Texas affected last year by those floods, is being affected again. There are a lot of swiftwater rescues taking place. The new warning systems that have been installed across that portion of the state have been in use, and you can only imagine, right, the memories that are now literally flooding back into people's hearts and minds and communities. So let's be lifting up the people of Texas today. Fires that are affecting Canada and the upper Midwest of the United States is also affecting air quality in the northeastern United States. And so if you're tasting the air today or choking on it, you're not alone, but let's be lifting up those who have particularly fragile health concerns, and this really puts them in a difficult position today. And then there's a lot of folks who, they lost a house in a fire, or their whole community was devastated by fire. I'm thinking about communities in California and elsewhere, and I just want you to just recognize that when news of a catastrophic event, a hurricane, a flash flood, a fire, a tornado, an earthquake, when those headlines pop, people who have experienced those traumas in the past, that all comes back. And so be sensitive to that today. Maybe there is somebody who has had that kind of experience and you're like, I bet they're seeing that headline and I bet they're feeling the feels today. Well, just reach out to them via text and say, hey, I'm just praying for you today. I'm just living with an awareness that what's going on in the world today is affecting you, and I'm praying for you. Certainly the ongoing war in Ukraine, but also the newly inflamed hot situation in Iran, particularly in the Strait of Hormuz, and now spilling over into neighboring nations as Iran strikes out against its neighbors. And then Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be traveling here to the United States for the funeral of South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham. And so he's going to have conversations with the President of the United States while he's here. We don't know what else he's going to be doing. But anytime that those kinds of things are taking place, I'm just very, very aware that evil is afoot, and it's always prowling around looking for a way in. And so just be praying for a hedge of protection, for wisdom, for safety, for peace, all the things. Okay, I learned a new phrase yesterday, algorithmic media. Now, it's actually not a brand new phrase. It's just new to me. I mean, I feel like I'm just finally getting a grasp on, quote, social media. And apparently we've now moved beyond social media. We're not even supposed to be talking about social media anymore. We're supposed to be talking about algorithmic media. Algorithmic media refers to the reality that what you engage and what I engage as media are different. So digital content is distributed in a way that it's selected, it's ranked, it's personalized. So these algorithms out there, so these are, machines. This is AI we're talking about again. It's determining what you and I are actually fed. So we call it a feed for a reason. It's because it is what we are consuming in terms of media. And it's not social, it's algorithmic. And the primary goal is to maximize your attention, your engagement, by curating a unique stream of content that's based on your behavioral data, what it knows about you that you may not even consciously know about yourself. What kinds of ads do your eyes linger on? Where do you tend to click and linger and look? Yeah, it's going to feed you more of that. And so when we think about the way that traditional media was offered and consumed, think about newspapers and television when it started out, or even traditional radio broadcasts. The same content was delivered to everyone at the same time. The audience was passive. The communication went in one direction. And then we moved from an area of traditional media, what we might think of as the one to the many, to social media, where platforms were built for like genuine back and forth connectivity. Like you and your friends would share what you were watching, and you would then engage with each other about that content. Maybe think about a text group that would be operating during a show that you'd all be watching, kind of thing, right? And that created a social media experience where we might not have been giving input to the show itself, although in some cases that was true. Think about the ways that you literally participate in shows like American Idol, where you are actively participating in what is happening by your engagement and feedback during the show. Well, now we have algorithmic media, and it's totally data-driven. Your feed is not chronological. It is what you are fed is solely based on who you follow, where your eye lingers, what you click on. And the algorithms are constantly tracking your interactions in real time, how long you watch something, how long you pause, what you scroll, how long you scroll. And it's designed to give you personalized, hyper-engaging content. And it's drawing that content from a global pool. It's serving you what it predicts is going to keep you scrolling. And so I just think that we need to be aware of that. And we need to recognize that those algorithms are feeding us what it expects us to gorge on. You and I can no longer say that we are, like, quote, on social media, because that's not how it works anymore. You and I get different results. We talked about this with Austin Gravely a few minutes ago. When you and I, quote, Google something or whatever search engine you're using, it's AI informed, and we're going to get different results. And so that means you and I are going to operate with different information. We're going to rely on different sources, and that's going to leave us speaking different truths. Now think back to what you know about the Tower of Babel. We're talking there about the book of Genesis. And I want you to think about the true confusion that exists today. It's not just a variety of languages. We have what I would regard as like a radical incoherence. So the way that the algorithm is curating feeds for you, highly personalized media, it doesn't just result in isolation. It results in custom-made realities where we then go off with other people who live in a similar custom-made reality to us. But just think about the division that produces in a given culture. When different groups are exposed to radically different information and live in that ecosystem of information, their vocabularies change, their perceived facts diverge. And so just as in the biblical story, they're no longer building something together. What they were building together unravels. not because of external sabotage, but because their shared meaning totally dissolved. And then consider Pentecost and how it undoes Babel. Jamison Statema is going to join us. All right, where in your house do you keep your broken crayons? I have a container. We call it the bin because they are the crayons that have been there and done that. And so we have a bin. It's in the pie safe in our kitchen. Where do you keep your broken crayons? Because that's where some of the best art's going to come from. Jamison Statema is joining us now. Among other things, he's the author of A Broken Crayon. Jamison, welcome to the Reconnect.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Absolutely. It's really fun to have you. For folks who are not familiar with you, tell us a little bit about Go Fish.
So Go Fish makes great music for kids that won't drive parents bonkers. That's what we do. We've done that for 30 years now. We've also released a lot of really solid gospel-centered children's ministry curriculum for children's ministries, so like VBS, Advent, Easter, things like that. And we have toured for many, many years and still do that, and just released my first children's book. So that's sort of in a nutshell what I'm up to,
good.
Who we are.
No,
Yeah,
I love that. Okay, so Go Fish is the sort of the larger ministry. As you're listening right now,
Yes.
You should check it out, gofishresources.com. So you talk about this being a really personal project, a broken crayon. Talk about that. There's a reason that we do something. So tell us the story behind A Broken Crayon.
Well, I can kind of sum it up this way. I say this a lot. Pain is a great motivator for change. And that's been true in my life, and I've seen that played out in a lot of people's lives around me. And so often we try to, avoid being broken, avoid being in pain. But I think many times that's where God intervenes and uses that pain, uses that brokenness to motivate us to change and to do something different. And so that's my story. That's really what prompted this. A Broken Crayon started out as a song. That's what I've primarily been for the last 3 decades, as a songwriter. And so I wrote this song, and for years I've wanted to turn one of my children's songs into a book and just didn't really feel like I had the right one. And I remember introducing this song. It was in Houston, Texas, at a preschool teachers conference. And we were like 2 lines into it, and I was seeing tears. And so as a songwriter, you notice things like that, and you go, okay, this is connecting. And so that's really what started this. But yeah, for me on a personal level, for years, Carmen, I believed the lie that in order to be used by God, I had to have it all together. And it didn't take me long to realize, hey, I do not have it all together. So I thought, well, I'll just act like I have it all together. And man, that didn't work very well for me either. And before long, I was burnt out. I was isolated. I was emotionally numb and just frustrated, angry at the world, and didn't know why. And it wasn't until I was willing to admit my brokenness, deal with some things from my past that were coming out sideways in my life, get some help, that things began to change. And eventually, instead of being ashamed of the broken parts of my life, I began to embrace them. And I was amazed. People's reactions were a lot different than I expected. Instead of shunning me, they could now finally relate to me. And my relationships got deeper, and I got better friends. And it was the opposite. So really, vulnerability for me has been like a 40-year journey. And this book really was born out of that.
So good. We're talking with Jamison Statema from the ministry gofishresources.com. The book is A Broken Crayon. We'd love to send you a direct link on the text line, 877-933-2484. Yes, it's a song. And yes, there's a video, all the things. It's all the things. But we're going to highlight the book because I feel like it's a good access point for us. It gives us something to hold in our hands and turn the pages of and reflect upon for ourselves. I feel like you should we call it the bin at my house, and not a BIN. it's a Ben, Been, because
Yeah.
these are the crayons that have been there and done that. And so I feel like this book is like best experienced with some broken crayons.
Absolutely. And that's a really good way to put it. Been there, done that. That's really good for me. I used to only trust people that looked perfect. And the older I get, I only really trust the broken crayons who have been there, done that, have some battle scars to show for the work they've been doing for God, and just go, okay, they've been through it. Let's learn from that. And yeah,
I don't follow anybody that doesn't walk with a limp.
yeah. Well, that's a line in
yeah.
the song. Actually, because someone came up to me one time after I shared my story and shared the song, and this older gentleman came up and he's like, "Buddy, I'd rather walk with someone with a limp any day than someone who walks with a strut." And I thought that was so cool. And so,
Such a good line, right?
yeah,
All right,
I
we're going
know.
to talk about the core of the song and the thesis of the book, which is a broken crayon still colors. Like it, in fact, it doesn't just still color, it colors better than it did before. And we're going to talk
Yeah.
about that in just a moment, in a culture that is like relentlessly pressuring both children and adults to like look flawless or perform perfectly. So we're going to continue our conversation with Jamison Statema. And as we do that, you should let us know on the text line that you would like a link to a broken crayon. We're happy to send that to you. You can also find Jamison and other resources at gofishresources.com. You're listening to The Reconnect. Just take the first step. Just take the first step. I mean, every journey begins with a first step, right? And if you want to hike to the top of a mountain, or if you just want to, make it around the block, it all starts with a first step. Just take one step, a step out the door. Now, the same holds true in the journey of discipleship with Jesus. A relationship with Jesus actually begins with a first step. Sometimes taking that first step can be really hard, right? Well, if you've got questions about what it means to begin a relationship with Jesus, just take the first step. Text the word faith to 41224. Our friends at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association are going to hold your hand as you take the first step or the next step in your walk of faith with Jesus. They're going to help you walk with him and talk with him. Take the first step of faith today. Text the word faith to 41224. Lori Tepper was a friend of mine when I was a kid, and I remember the day that she had a brand new box of crayons and I had none. So this is like third grade, probably. And I distinctly remember Lori breaking her crayons in half so that I'd have crayons too. And so that is what came to mind when I read A Broken Crayon. Jamison Statema is here. He is the singer, the songwriter, the now author, and we are talking about A Broken Crayon. It's based on a hit song and video by Go Fish. We'd love to send you a direct link on the text line 877-933-2484. I know, I got all kinds of broken crayon stories.
Well, keep them coming. I think a lot of people do. It's funny, we were doing a concert at a church out in Los Angeles last year, and I gave this whole talk about how, broken crayons are even more valuable than perfect ones. And I asked a question, and the sweet little girl answered the question correctly. And I'm like, well, come on up here. I have something for you. And I had one of those jumbo crayons. And right as she approached me on the stage, I just went, broke the crayon in half. And there was an audible just in the audience, and I'm like, we just talked about that broken crayons are good, but we still just gasped at the fact that I did this,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so talk with us about the broken crayon, not that it just still colors, but it's even better than it did before. Talk with us about getting over our cultural sense that we have to be flawless or perform perfectly, because the gospel subverts that. So Make the pitch.
Well, that's really the core of the gospel, quite frankly. And I'm almost feeling a little bit ashamed that I missed it for so long, because I grew up in a solid Christian family. Man, I went to a Christian school, a great Bible-believing church. And man, the law resonated with me, but grace, I think that's for other people. I had a hard time believing that for myself. And so what formed at me from a really early age was just this performance mentality. I mean, I literally have performed for a living for my whole life. But that started way before Go Fish started. And that really was dangerous for me because my identity became what I did, not who I was in Christ. And that's a dangerous place. It's all over Scripture. I know it. I've read it. It just took like 40 years to get from my brain to my heart. And that's what's so sweet about talking with children. Their responses are just so honest. One of the things I've been able to do with this book is travel to different schools and do book readings and share. We read the book, we talk about the book, and then we sing the book. But there's discussion questions at the back of the book. And when I share myself, what has made me feel like a broken crayon first, and then I ask the children, my goodness, the answers that I get back are just so honest and so real. And that's really the point of the book. When you're willing to set your ego aside and just be honest with God, with yourself, and with others, there is a whole world out there that I was missing just because I was too scared to be seen and to be known by people who were safe in my world. And when you're willing to open that up, when you're willing to just be real about all of you, I feel like that's when the key really unlocks and God can go, okay, I got some new things for you that you weren't ready for before, but you're ready for now because you're finally being honest. You've dealt with these things in your life. And that's when A Broken Crayon can really start coloring. I probably never would have been brave enough to write a book like this had I not gone through some really painful things in my own life. I probably wouldn't be visiting schools and doing the things that I'm doing. And I give all glory to God for that. But like I said, pain is a motivator for change. When you're in enough pain, the ego will eventually surrender. And that's what happened to me. And, I'm just trying to, I say this book isn't for everybody. It's only for people who have maybe made a mistake. And so it's just a joy to talk about that with children. My dream for this book is that it will just be a catalyst for some real conversations between parents, grandparents, and their kids and grandkids, where you can talk about your own story. You can talk about what makes you feel like a broken crayon sometimes. The artist in the story represents God. It's not an overtly Christian book because I wanted to get into public schools, but there are a lot of hidden Easter eggs in this book. You'll see a little scar on the artist's hand. And when I go into a school, even a public school, I can say, does the artist in the story remind you of anyone you know? And inevitably, some sweet little kid will say, well, God. And since they open the door, I can walk right on through it, even in a public school. So it's a beautiful thing. And I'm just grateful that God provided people around me who showed me grace, who modeled it for me to where I could finally go, well, maybe this is real. And it's been a beautiful thing.
I was going to point out the covert nature of it, but you have now done that. So it's,
we're sneaky.
It's not overt. It is covert, and I love it. I was actually thinking to myself, like every hospital gift shop should be carrying this book.
Yeah.
Like every children's hospital in the gift, and like this should be the book that's available in the places where brokenness is real. I think that juvenile detention centers should have this book. I just think, it has been, it's a gift for every kid and family, and certainly it's certainly something that our churches should have, and Christian parents and on and on. But like you, I'm thinking that this is the messaging that needs to be out there in those environments where kids know they're broken. And they're broke, and they're broken, and they live in broken places and broken homes. And and God still wants to make something beautiful of their life. They are still good, and the truth is still beautiful, and it's still for them. And so I want to celebrate and applaud what you're doing, and fan the flame of it.
Thank you. And you know what? One thing that drives me crazy is when people just talk down to kids. That's something I've never wanted to do through my music or through the book A Broken Crayon, because when you really get on their level and talk to these children, these are children whose parents are going through divorces, who are dealing with addiction, who are going through all kinds of real tough circumstances. And so it's amazing how just a simple book about crayons can open the door to really just encouraging them and letting them know they're not alone. And one of the coolest things I've heard is how many counselors are using this in their office to just read with if they work with children, or even students or teens, and it just opens the door for those conversations. And so I appreciate you recognizing that and mentioning that, because it was intentional, and I'm happy to know that came across when you read the book.
Yeah. So if you're listening right now and you're like, how could I positively impact and influence the world around me today? You could avail yourself of some copies of this book, A Broken Crayon, and then you could go put them in little libraries. Drive around town and stock up the little libraries where you live, because there's a kid that's going to go past there, and they're going to look in there, and they need a good book to put their hands on. They need a book that has a message that is good and godly and gracious and beautiful and fun. And A Broken Crayon is all of those things. And then they're going to get to the last page and they're going to see this QR code. And because they all have phones, or someone near them does, they're going to scan that, and it's going to take them to the video, which gives them something that they can then easily share with everybody else. So I really want to encourage you today, if you've been looking for a resource, somebody to partner with you in your own, broken journey, but also in your efforts to influence emerging generations, this is it. So gofishresources.com. A Broken Crayon is the book, but it's also the song and a video, and on and on and on. We'd love to send you the direct link on the text line, 877-933-2484. Jamison, will you come back sometime and we can talk about the Hope Line?
Oh, I would love to do that. I would love to talk about the Hope Line.
Tim is a friend of mine, and he would probably be upset if he heard that we talked and we didn't talk about the Hope Line. So if you will come back and talk about the Hope Line, that would be great.
Sign me up. I'm there.
Love it. All right, Jamison Statema, now an author. I mean, we're adding author to his litany of accomplishments in the way that we would refer to him. You can find him and tons of resources at gofishresources.com. The book we've been talking about today, A Broken Crayon. Next up, Bob Castro will be back. You know Bob. He's a retired pastor like you. He's a member of the Carmen Nation. He's here every single day, and he's going to help us think about Superman. So I want you to think about Superman for just a moment. Yes, faster than a speeding bullet, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, the guy who poses as mild-mannered newspaperman Clark Kent. Yes, that one. The guy that's in love with his coworker, Lois Lane. Yes, that's Superman. Now, have you ever thought of him as a messiah figure? And then do you realize he's an alien? One commentator notes, look, Superman's the ultimate outsider, literally an undocumented extraterrestrial immigrant, arriving as an unaccompanied minor. I know you've never thought about Superman that way before. Bob Castro is going to talk with us about aliens who are also superheroes. That's up next here on The Reconnect. Always fun to have our friend Bob Castro back with us, retired pastor, social influencer, member of the Carmen Nation. Hey, Bob.
It's great to be back on with you. Thanks.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about superhero aliens, or aliens that are superheroes. I led off with Superman. He seems the most obvious one. He's not alone. He's not the only one, but maybe that's where we should start.
I think so. I want to mention that this is a Carmen homework assignment. The Reconnect with Carmen. Carmen sometimes gives homework assignments, and this was one of them from last month. One of the Carmen Nation texted in and said, what aliens are superheroes? And the three that came immediately to mind are Superman, Supergirl, and Thor. And the reason that Supergirl came to mind, of course, is because the Supergirl movie was about to release. but Superman is definitely the go-to in that Superman came to Earth from another planet.
All right. So we know that Superman came to Earth from Krypton.
Yes.
And so here in Earth's environment, he has what seem to us like godlike powers, but there's also something apparently in our environment that that can bring him low. He is a messianic figure of sorts. Maybe you could just, for folks who've never thought about it this way, maybe you could walk us through some of that.
The best example of that, I think, is the Henry Cavill version of Superman, where Superman, by the way, has a name. His name is Kal-El, and he is sent to Earth as an infant when his planet, Krypton, is about to explode. His father puts him in a small spacecraft and sends him to Earth. Earth is an intentional choice because his father is aware that when he arrives on Earth and receives the radiation from a yellow sun, he will be essentially invincible. And his father recorded messages for him, because Kal-El came here as a baby, that he would later have access to as an adult, basically saying that in sending him to Earth, he will lead the humans into the light. He will be an example to them. He will rescue them. And so he has the traits of a Messiah in that he will save humans and actually save humans from themselves. So this is a pretty good example of that. One of the things that was really controversial about James Gunn's Superman, which is the newest iteration of that, is in the new Superman movie, which introduces us to the new Supergirl. It turns out that his parents actually sent him to Earth as a conqueror to become the emperor of the planet. And what makes the new Superman heroic is he actually goes against the wishes of his parents to become the Messiah figure of Earth that we've always known Superman to be. But what happened when Krypton exploded is that parts of Krypton were sent flying into space, and there is ore called kryptonite, and in its presence, Superman becomes not only like a normal human being, but sometimes even weaker than a normal human being would be. And this is a really important storyline, because if Superman is invincible, then it's really kind of boring. Because nothing can stop him, so why are we watching? So kryptonite was introduced to make him more relatable, because now he's just like us.
I have a note here from a listener that says, do you know that this was conceived of by Jewish immigrants, and that his story maybe was to parallel the story of the infant Moses, and that his Kryptonian name, Kal-El, incorporates the Hebrew word for God, obviously, El-E-L.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think those are some of the observations that we're making. If you've got other observations you'd like to make about Superman or other superheroes who have alien origins. So this grew out of a conversation that we had some time back, a month ago, about movies that feature aliens. And I was like, well, there are movies that feature aliens who are also superheroes. So let's talk about that next time. So that's what we're doing today. Bob Castro is here. He was gracious to take up the assignment. In addition to Superman, Thor would be the other big character that comes to mind here.
Yes.
Different
Thor,
universe.
Yes, Thor is the DC. in movies, in superhero movies, you have universes. You have the universe of DC universe, and that is Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. And then you've got the Marvel universe, which is Iron Man, Captain America, Thor. Superman and Batman are part of the DC universe, and Thor is part of the Marvel universe. And of course, we know Thor as the Norse god of thunder. And so when we think of Thor as a pagan god. And you have to watch the Thor movies relatively carefully to get the reference that Thor actually comes from an actual planet called Asgard, which can actually be destroyed, and in the storyline at one point is destroyed. And Thor's father is Odin, and Odin schools Thor's troublesome brother Loki by making sure that Loki understands that they are not gods. Specifically, we are born, we grow old, and we die. Now, what made them deities to the Norse is that they grow old, and die over a period of 5,000 Earth years. So they come across to us as deities, but they come to Earth from a planet as aliens. And in the original Thor movie, there are definitely messianic undertones in the first Thor movie as well, where he comes to Earth and his superpowers are invisible, unavailable, and he receives his superpowers back after he dies a sacrificial death and is raised from the dead. And his powers, as the story progresses, become godlike. So once again, you have someone who comes from another planet to rescue the Earth.
Do you feel like when we're watching these movies, when we're entering into, the DC or the Marvel universe, we are disengaging our Christian minds and what we know about reality? Or do you think that they provide us a way to engage actually on subject matter that might otherwise be, sort of like difficult terrain to walk into with people? Like, do you view this as like a door, like blocking conversation, or a doorway through which we might walk?
Thor was particularly interesting. In my last full-time congregational call, I did movie nights, and I mentioned before that I had a program where I would knight my young people in worship in the name of the church and in the name of Christ. And I was watching Thor with my young people in movie night, and I was able to walk them through this in real time as it was happening. And my youth, of course, didn't realize at all that this was death and resurrection to godness, godlike status playing out on the screen until I pointed it out to them. But once I did, we could talk about it.
Yeah, that is like helping people see what they're seeing. Like, do you have eyes to see? That's what you're doing there. You are, you're providing, you're like pointing out the reality instead of just letting people passively consume a piece of media. You're like hitting the pause button and being like, okay, do you see that? Do you see the storyline? Yeah. Do you see what's happening here? Can you make those connections? I think that, Bob, I think that's essential today. I don't think people are seeing what they're seeing.
I think that's true. My favorite example, which I had the opportunity to share with you, is the number of times in movies that a superhero will assume the form of the cross or the crucified one. And I actually taught this to a group of young youth group leaders when we discussed doing movie nights with young people in the country of Latvia some years ago. And I was able to point out to them movies in which before an extreme stress or an extreme exertion of power, the hero would take the form of the crucified one. There are several examples of this in movies. So when you talk about hitting the pause button, I will literally do that in movie night. I will literally hit the pause button so that they can see that this person, Spider-Man, Silver Surfer, by the way, who's also an alien, Wonder Woman, each of them in their particular movie will assume the form of the cross before a great exertion.
That's fascinating, right? It's like something to watch for. It's like now that I've been told to watch for it, I can watch for it. I think that's really, really helpful. All right, let's hit the pause button here for just a moment. When we come back, we're going to continue our conversation with Bob Castro. He's a retired pastor. Like you, he's a bit of a junkie of the Reconnect. Like we like each other, and we like hanging out. We like talking about the things. So thank you for your engagement on the text line on this topic and so many other topics of mutual concern. We appreciate that. When we come back, I'm going to ask Bob to circle back to a prior conversation that we had and maybe help us understand a little bit more about multiverse movies. We touched on this the last time Bob was here, but I felt like we kind of didn't complete the conversation. So movies that promote atheism by dealing with concepts in a multiverse. We're going to circle back around to that. If you've got other questions, it's sort of the intersection of movies in particular, media in general, and the Christian faith, post them and I'll ask them to Bob. 877-933-2484. You're listening to The Reconnect. Hey, I really like it that you listen whenever you want, wherever you are, at all times of the day and night. That is so cool. So thank you so very much for all the ways in which you support this ministry with your prayers and words of encouragement. Right now, in order for this podcast to be available everywhere all the time for everyone, I actually need your help. Could you support this podcast right now so that more people in more places at every hour of every day could hear about Jesus and grow in their relationship with him? Click the link in the show notes or give now at myfaithradio.com. And thank you so much again for listening to this podcast. Our friend Bob Castro is here with us. We're talking about things at the intersection of faith and media in particular. We've been talking about superheroes and those that have alien origins and serve as messianic or Christ figures. Bob, if we could circle back to a conversation that we had, I think the last time that you were here, and we were talking about atheism and multiverse movies. So maybe we could just touch on that again.
Sure. The context last time was how Hollywood is using movies to promote atheistic themes. And last time we spent a fair amount of time looking at movies that deal with what is called panspermia, alien DNA seeding. And the context for that was that an atheist microbiologist discovered years ago that the DNA molecule can't form by random chance. So what do you do if you're an atheist and you realize that the foundation building block of all life was designed by a designer? What do you do? And the answer to that from the atheist perspective is that aliens came from another planet and seeded DNA on the earth. Well, now we have what are called the cosmological constants. And you've had a cosmologist on your show a couple of years ago that actually walked us through the precise calculations necessary for life to exist in the universe at all. And we know what those are, and we know that they are fixed. So how could anyone believe that those happened by mere chance? It just makes no sense. And so what people like Stephen Hawking did was that he created a formula for a multiverse in order to help atheists deal with the fact that the cosmological constants which form the basis of life in the universe really can't form by random chance. And Hawking's solution is, well, there are billions and billions of universes, one of which happened by chance, time, and matter to fall into the constants that we needed for life. Well, so how do you sell people on the idea of billions of universes? Well, as we talked about with alien DNA seeding, you put it in a science fiction movie. And so now we have a series of movies to promote the multiverse, to get people to accept it, even though it is unproven and unprovable, to make a way for people to accept the cosmological constants without having to accept God. And so that is a series of movies, a significant series of movies that promote billions of universes all running in parallel with each other.
I think that for many of us, we're like, hey, I'm just trying to live in the universe that I'm in. And I think that these other universes is a distraction or maybe a challenge. And so there's at least one person on the text line who's like, should we even be, as Christians, watching? And so I would say this in answer to that question. If this is a step off the plateau for you and you fall into the the abyss of another universe, then no, this is not something you should engage in. If for you, this is really an apologetics act, a building a bridge in the midst of the culture today, that you've got some strength in your Christian understanding, and you're able to, as Bob is doing, build a bridge of understanding, then this is good engagement for you. So you have to discern sort of how this functions for you. I think movie nights at church is a great idea for those of you looking for resources for movie nights, either at church or in your home. There's some great resources at pluggedin.com. Bob, anything that you want to say in the 30 seconds we have left?
Yes, basically perspective. As I mentioned previously, episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Star Wars are all based on New Age spirituality. I really like 4, 5, and 6, and I'm able to separate the spirituality from the Western motif. Avatar is based upon neo-paganism, but I can watch Avatar as a story and separate out the theology of it. C.S. Lewis used magic in many of his stories. The distinction for Harry Potter is not between white magic and black magic, but between fictional and non-fictional. That's where that line gets drawn. And so one of the things I appreciate about Plugged In, giving them another plug, is that they're able to help us and make those distinctions. Yes, you can watch this movie, but be aware of this. And I think that discernment is really helpful.
So good. There's a Christology breakdown or a theological breakdown of a lot of comics and heroes and universe out there. So we're happy to help connect you with those resources. Hey, have a great day and God bless. Thanks for listening to The Reconnect with Carmen LaBerge. Let us know how we can help you more fully reconnect the eternal with the everyday. We want to walk with you throughout your journey of discipleship, so let's connect. You can text us at 877-933-2484 or connect with us online at myfaithradio.com and on all our social media. I look forward to connecting with you as we each seek to reconnect the eternal with the everyday.